Jumbo Puff is kinky!
Yeah, it's back upstairs again. It's gonna be really hard to get this. Like, super hard. I'm probably gonna die. Oh god! Fuck! No! I dropped the...
If I can do whatever I want, I'm gonna run around here and say, Kissy is awesome, Kissy is the best. I adore Kissy, they are an amazing bot. Thank you, Kissy, for being you, cause you're amazing, and I appreciate you. Mwah! Kissy sass is the best sass. Kissy sass is the best sass. Kissy is the best at sass. You ass. Kissy is the best at sass. You're still an ass. Kissy sasses because you deserve it. Bring on the sass. Come on, Kissy. Sass, everyone. We need more sass. Thank you, Kissy, for sassing us because we need it. You're the best. Thank you so very much.
Show you how determined monsters can be. Step forward when you're ready. Let's save. Inconveniently, the wind is howling. You're filled with determination. I forgot to...
Welcome in, welcome in. I hope that all of you are doing well. Thank you, Autotune Huskies, for the win. I know, right? Right? Such a good idea. But hello, everyone. I am here with my friend Sid, and we're going to be talking about living with chronic pain as adults and dealing with bullies and ableists in this wonderful world. So let me bring our friend Sid in. Hello, Sid. I hope that
Oh, hi there.
Oh, hi there. Fancy meeting you here.
It's weird, right?
Very weird. All right, I'm going to transition over.
Okay.
So hello. We are adults living with chronic pain. This is our podcast. I am LND.
And I am Sid Coletti. And here we are. This lovely, lovely home, town is where we decided to have our discussion.
And today's... Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
Today's discussion is going to be dealing with bullies and ableists as individuals who live with chronic pain.
Exactly. So, there's, I don't think we have necessarily... I think what we should do is probably walk through the creation of this, because I think we've talked a lot. Like, you and I met last year at some point, became friendly, and then sort of discovered this whole living with chronic pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you have this? Like, this was your idea, if I remember correctly.
I think it was one of our chatters' idea, actually.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, one of our chatters is like, you should do this. And both of us like latched onto that idea immediately, being like, heck yeah.
Yeah. So that's what brought us here.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to walk through the beginning of this, how we started having these conversations and stuff that we've shared with each other, and then transition into today's topic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like it.
All right. Well, you wanna run with it? You can just ask each other questions, or just,
Yeah, we can ask each other questions. Also, Jess Williams says, chronic pain is rough. Chronic pain is rough. So maybe we should define what chronic pain is first. So chronic pain is living with a pain that has lasted more than 6 months.
Okay.
6 months, or is it 6 weeks? Hold on. I think maybe even it's 6.
It's okay.
I've lived with it so long. 6 months. No, I was correct the first time. So chronic pain is a pain that's ongoing, usually lasts longer than 6 months. This type of pain can continue even after an injury or an illness that has caused it has healed or gone away. Pain signals remain active in the nervous system for weeks, months, or even years. And I follow under
Emphasis
the years.
On the years, I was going to say.
One Cake Lady,
emphasis.
6 months. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Cake. I appreciate that. So yes, so 6 months or more.
Awesome. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, we are also streaming, while this podcast is being recorded, we are also streaming live on twitch.tv. Do you want to take a moment to talk about that, or?
Oh yeah, we could probably do that, because this is how we initially met each other in the first place, right? Is I decided to give streaming a chance, and then I met you, and everything has been lovely ever since.
Ever since we met, right? It's been awesome.
Yeah, it has been.
I think fallen into place. So that's where we're having this conversation right now, for anybody who might be listening on the podcast. And we decided that this would be just kind of an interesting way to have what is a very common under addressed issue, and a very well understood one by a lot of folks.
Very much so. I was actually watching, so I'm a big fan of the Vlogbrothers, so Hank and John Green, and there was a YouTube video that one of them brought up today, which was talking about chronic pain and how it's under talked about, and even like brought up a Virginia Woolf quote, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, and I really liked it. And I meant to send it to you before I got here, but then I got like caught up with making tea and life happened. So
Sure, as it does. Do you recall the quote by chance, or can you...
No, but I can probably get someone to go and find it for me and post it in the Discord, post it in the chat if they're able to.
Okie doke.
All right, so I have someone who is getting both the quote for me along with the Vlogbrothers video, and they're going to post it in the stream chat here in Twitch, so we'll be able to diverge on that a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of Twitch, do you want to plug your Twitch channel really quick?
I probably should. That is probably good. What is my Twitch channel? I don't know.
What is
I'm not a
it?
professional.
No.
Twitch.tv/lesbian next door.
Awesome. And I am also found at Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Sid, CID_Coletti, COLETTI. There, all the weird plugging thing is done now. We've done. Can get into it.
Yeah, do the stuff. Let's do the stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I also love the fact that in Twitch itself, I'm known mostly for being a Stardew Valley streamer. So what we've decided, I created a farm specifically, and that's sort of our backdrop. And the two of us are right now sitting on benches outside. It's springtime, so the cherry blossoms are slowly going across the stream. We have animals walking around. There are tulips blooming everywhere. We have a little dog that keeps running around and being happy in a dog. And it's just such a nice backdrop to be able to talk about something so serious. Just to give you a visual idea of what's going on here as well.
Yeah, it is a strange forum, but I think it's a good idea. I love it.
I kind of like, it's kind of wonderfully awkward, and I'm kind of wonderfully awkward, so it works for me.
Absolutely. I love wonderfully awkward. That's our whole vibe, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so.
Wonderfully awkward.
Yep.
Brought to you by Lesbian Next Door and Sid Coletti. Oh, there you go. There's a new title for the show.
Yeah.
Wonderfully living with chronic pain. Wonderfully awkward.
Yeah, I like it.
There you go.
I like it very much.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, did we want to even like outline how we live with chronic pain and how it came about? Is that something
you stole my thought. Go for it.
I'm in your brain.
You are. Yep. There we are.
It's a nice place. I like your brain.
Oh, well, thank you. It's weird.
You're welcome. I know, I'm also weird, so it's fine. Perfect. And Jeff Alphanumeric was able to both share the YouTube video along with the quote. So thank you for that, Jeff Alphanumeric. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. All right, so chronic pain. I guess we can start off with our history, briefly, and then kind of go back and forth on that. So yeah, go kick us off.
So mine is from a work-related ladder accident that happened in 2009. I did a thing on a ladder that I shouldn't have, and it caused, at the time, temporary damage to my spine, but as a result, the area was weak and was ready to basically become worse and worse and worse as time went on. So I had the injury, and then I got better. And then I moved something, and it got worse. And then I got better from that. And then I went on a hike while I had been out tent trailering with my spouse. It got worse from there, and it never got better after that. And from that day forward, I have every single minute of every single day of my life since then has been in pain. As I am speaking with you right now, I am in pain.
Right. Okay. So I'll give a I don't want to just move on, but I guess I'll just do my quick thing and then we can go back and forth on it. Because again, like I don't want to jump ahead right to our topic of conversation. But everybody's like, well, we all live with pain, right? Like life, everybody eventually at some point deals with pain or aches or this or that. But the definition of chronic pain is, I don't know. I can tell you how mine started and what mine's been like over the last 12 years since all this began. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this. Sorry.
That's okay. Like I discussed, like mine's a spinal injury specifically, right? So it's not like I don't have something, say, like fibromyalgia or arthritis or something of that nature. Mine was specifically an incident that occurred.
Okay. Yeah, mine I think was related originally to an incident that occurred, but that sort of got the ball rolling. I woke up one morning in 2008 and couldn't walk. That was it. I just couldn't walk. The pain was so, and we've all sort of been there, but what occurred for me after that was a complete failure of that area of my spine, as far as that whole disc, which ended up causing pretty severe damage to the nerve root as well. So I have some permanent, that nerve pain that exists on the left side there, or right side, whichever you might have. And
mine's my right S1 nerve.
Perfect. That's what mine was on the left. Amazing.
Hey, we complete each other in pain.
Oh, fantastic.
I hate it.
So much fun. So what I ended up having to deal with was a couple of surgeries and procedures to try and help reduce the pain. And honestly, over a period of time, it just, the initial brutal pain was gone. But I then was stuck with this. Now I have had a number of surgeries. I've had, all this muscle tissue and scar tissue growing up and all this arthritis. So I'm now living in this state of chronic pain. And I have other areas of my spine that have failed as well, not to the degree that one did until recently, which brings us to this sort of conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, where mine, the pain is now radiating, has caused other things. So now I have damage to my right S1 nerve. And it feels like, for me, it's like there is a very thick wool sock over the area where I can definitely tell there's supposed to be pressure there, but I can't tell what I'm feeling. And like things that are sharp or things that are cold, I don't have as much sensory ability as I would in other parts of my body. Like, that's what it is for me. And here's the thing, pain is sometimes really subjective depending on the individual, and it can differ from person to person, even if it's similar pain, where both Sid and I have spinal problems and both Sid and I have nerve problems. We may differ completely. And that's...
well, absolutely.
Yeah. From that, I have degenerative disc disease basically throughout my spine, meaning that the discs, the squishy things between the bones of my spine, are slowly losing all of their cohesion. The bones are eventually going to meet. They're going to grind and fuse together. And so lots of parts of my spine are slowly going to lose their capacity to have any bendability. Along with that, I also have mild mechanical scoliosis, meaning I have a small curve in my spine that shouldn't be there, and military neck, which means that like my upper part of my neck is the wrong direction.
So top to bottom, your spine is
not happy.
Not happy.
With that, I've also recently developed pain in my hips, both of them. And yesterday I had a new procedure done, which the way I was describing it to Sid earlier, it felt like someone was taking a very small boxing glove that was attached to a chopstick and pushing it through my skin, through the muscle to either side of my hip bone. And I had that done on both sides with injections. And it was really uncomfortable. Like, I can take a lot of pain. I use I've been using a TENS machine with different medical professionals, and I've had 2 different ones be impressed with how high I can actually have the TENS machine. So a TENS machine is one of those things where it does those electrodes and it sends electricity into your muscle and makes it to try and disrupt the signal that's going to your brain and reset everything. A steroid, so it was a cortisone. Was the injection that I received, which is also really hard on your bone itself. So we're hoping that only a few applications will need to be done, and it'll help my hip pain to the point that I can actually sleep on my side again.
Right. Well, and that's the thing with chronic pain too that I don't think we've really touched on, is once something begins to affect you to the point where it's debilitating, you have to compensate in other ways. And the potential for damage in those other ways is that much greater. So
Correct.
like I'm a big guy. I've had a situation that's put me down for the last couple of months, unable to sit or stand, frankly just stay horizontal the entire time. I recently had a surgery. That was my second spinal fusion. My point is, like, with regard to having to move myself around, like, I've hurt my shoulder, I've hurt my wrist, I've hurt other parts of my body trying to compensate for the fact that I'm dealing with this immense amount of pain that I've had on and off for years. This now recent thing is very new, but I mean, I'm familiar with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something that ties in, I think, as well into the ableist portion of it, being like, well, why don't you just do it this way? Right.
Or why don't you do X, or why don't you do Y? Yeah, there's because everybody does have advice, right? Like, we all have our own experiences, what's worked, what's not worked. And while all of the best intentions in the world are there, it doesn't help typically ever. Like, how often have we ever sat and listened to somebody we didn't ask advice from?
Oh God, I know.
Or given it unsolicited and then said,
oh God,
all these years the wool is taken over off of my eyes. I'm not saying it can't happen. It's just it's just not a productive dialogue is the point. You know, and people again.
A lot of people just want to help and, like, fix the problem, right? And it's coming out from a place of good, but it can actually cause so much more harm as a result, because in a way it's just like, oh, well, clearly you were not intelligent enough, or you didn't do enough research to know about this thing.
Or you're not as smart as I am,
right?
It's like, that's...
And so when people start asking me, well, what have you tried? And I'll go through the list. So I have tried acupuncture. I have tried massage therapy. I have tried physiotherapy. I have tried a chiropractor. I have done water aerobics. I have done yoga. I have done Pilates. I'm now currently doing Pilates on what's called a Cadillac machine.
It's an interesting machine, to say the least. Look it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Cadillac machine, so much fun. And it's been amazing. But, like, I spent 2 years doing Pilates on a mat before I was able to work my way up to this machine itself. And it's been game-changing for me.
Amazing, by the way. So amazing.
Absolutely. Along with that, I also now receive nerve blocking injections, depending on where it's been. When I started, it was once a week. Once a week, I would get between 10 to 25 injections, top to bottom of my back.
It's a lot of injections.
I call it my stabbing time. I get stabbed a bunch.
What's on the agenda today? Well,
it's stabbing day.
I was gonna say there's tea with friends at like 11. I have a noon stabbing time appointment, and then I'll be home. What? A noon
exactly.
What?
Yeah, absolutely. The nerve blocking injections I've been getting for about 5 years, and they have provided me with a quality of life that I didn't know was going to ever be accessible to me anymore.
That's incredible.
for a while, as Sid was saying earlier about being horizontal, there were times where I couldn't even sit up to eat, and I would have to eat on my side. And I would have to take like small, tiny bites just to make sure that I didn't choke on the food that I was trying to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that thing of having to constantly adjust your lifestyle around this thing that you would love to be able to control in some way. And again, this touches on the ableism and bullying thing. It's like, do you think that I want to live in this state that I'm in?
Right.
I guess suppose perhaps maybe there's a few folks out there who will, but those are the exceptions, not the rule. Most people want to improve their quality of life.
Yeah.
But there's a number of different factors that go into that, and it's not a simple solution, nor is it an easy discussion to like begin.
Precisely. Yeah. Both you and I have talked about this offline, that you and I are not woe is me individuals.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Well, the fact that you have even gone out and made sure that you have gotten medical attention rather than just being like, oh, I'm in pain. Right. That's what I mean.
This is just life now. Yeah.
Where myself, like, I have tried so many different things to try and help mitigate and improve my quality of life, because I still have to live in my skin every single day. Kelsaro says, I live with chronic pain and polycystic ovarian syndrome. As I also actually happen to have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Cysts suck, and when cysts burst, it really sucks. So I understand that in a very visceral way, and I am sorry that is something that you have to live with. But yeah, Sharky also says chronic fatigue friends, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's something that chronic pain does. It's incredibly fatiguing because you have to, again, as you were saying, do extra steps and the like to try and do the same things that you normally would be able to without a thought. And having to say, like, use more of your shoulder to be able to like do this specific action, or like working on this, and like you end up hurting your wrists as a result because you're trying to pull yourself up from something, or having to like use your toes to pick something off the ground because you can't physically bend down to get it.
Right. And to, you know, and to touch on bullying, I mean, some people would say, well, if you perhaps were in, you know, different shape when you became injured, it would be easier for you to, and that's not a helpful discussion because, again, we are where we are. I already know this information as a larger guy, but I still find myself where I'm at, having to then struggle. So it doesn't, my lack of planning, whatever you want to call it, whatever that form of like, you know, dismissive bullying that exists in that space, it doesn't help me to then have that realization. It just makes it worse.
Yeah,
you know?
and Kelser has actually touched on something that is absolutely perfect for today's topic of dealing with bullies and ableists. Kelser says, I have passed out from the pain of polycystic ovarian syndrome before, and I had people make fun of me and accuse me of pretending to pass out for attention.
Sounds like something. Yeah, I mean, amazing.
And I find that we'll have slightly different views on this. As a woman who lives with chronic pain, the number of times that I have had people being like, oh, you're just doing it for attention. Or, oh, no, your pain is not nearly that bad. Or, no, it can't be that bad. Coming from men is both impressive and depressing.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially when it comes to those things like the PCOS that we don't have any ability to understand, because you know what I mean? Like, it's just not like we don't understand that type of pain. So to then render judgment or say anything isn't helpful at all.
Yeah, and Crow Scythe says, sadly true, especially from the hospital. Having doctors and having nurses belittle your pain is also definitely a thing that many women have to deal with, where if a gentleman is in similar situations, obviously not, or like, genital reproductive systems aside, if it's similar pain, may end up being treated differently. I'm not saying always, I'm just saying may.
It's possible. It's possible. I can't assume. I
It
think,
sucks, eh?
what's that? No, it sucks. It's fun to navigate these conversations. I like it. Because on the other side, if you're a gentleman with chronic pain, well, forgive the expression, but don't be a bitch. Get over it.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, there is also
what you're
that
told.
one. There is also that one. Yeah. Walk it off.
Or God forbid, walk it off. And there is some degree in life to we have to just kind of push forward, but this isn't that. This is a different state of being.
Mm-hmm. And Everset also touches on endometriosis is just awful, and I had so many male doctors downplay my pain until I found a gynecologist who did my hysterectomy. That is one, because it is also underdiagnosed as well, like severely underdiagnosed. And there's again that ableism, that bullying, even within medical fields, where the people who are supposed to help you are the ones who are making it worse.
Yes, because they're dismissive to Everset's point.
Yeah.
Or any, you're just like, well, no, it can't possibly be that. It's like, well, no, I had a doctor. I went to him with a stomach issue. Completely ignore everything I said. I'm going to refer you to a general surgeon because you have to have your gallbladder out. I didn't understand why. We hadn't done any tests or anything. He says, well, if you really feel like it, go to this guy. Also, he's an internal medicine person. I had an ulcer. It wasn't an inflamed gallbladder or anything. So my point, like, so often are we just simply dismissed. Like, I look at you and I know this is clearly your issue. Here's what I'm going to do for you, without ever taking the time to really, assess it further. I mean, that's dangerous.
Very much so. And it costs people's lives as well.
Yes. 100%.
And it's terrifying sometimes, the number of people who could have been saved if someone took an extra 5 minutes.
And people step aside from wanting to go get treatment because they are told constantly, you're fine, do this. I've tried that. No, you didn't really give it a try, or you didn't do it right. And I'm speaking about things that are suggested by medical professionals.
Yeah.
So people give up.
Very much so.
It's like, well, this is just it.
Even getting to an appointment can be really difficult. Another one that I find interesting is if, say, your doctor's office is up several flights of stairs and there's no elevator available. What if you're someone who is wheelchair bound? Or for like days like myself, I sometimes need to walk with a cane.
Right.
And trying to get up all of those stairs and then still be coherent enough to be able to talk about the pain that I'm in, to be able to get help.
Yeah.
It makes it so much less attainable. And I just sound less coherent. And sometimes I can't even just talk about it because it's just so much, I just end up crying.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So let's get to, because we walked a little bit through it, and which is, I'm actually kind of glad we didn't dig too deep right now, because I want to touch on a topic related to what we talked about before the show, where you said you experienced a fair amount of the bullying and ableism. Because I'll be very honest, outside of my story is different. I would like to focus on your story, and I'll explain why I think it'd be better for mine to be later or some other time.
That's totally understandable. So the last job that I have, so I'm retired right now. I'm retired because of my chronic pain. I am Canadian, so I live with a very... meager, let's just say, but it's not even like cost of living income from the government for individuals who live with chronic pain to the point that they cannot work. And I've had a panel of doctors go over my list of chronic pain and medical notations and being like, yes, the pain that you are living in is something that would cause you to not be able to work. So from a governmental doctor perspective, I am retired. So this is a very like well worked panel that has gone over my medical information. And while at the time when I was working, or even before, okay, let me back up even a little bit further than that. I found a job that I absolutely loved. I went from one job to this other job, which was absolutely amazing. It was a technical call center where I got to help people around the world with stuff. And during my interview, one of the questions that they had was just like, did you have anything else that you want to disclose? I'm like, yes, I live with chronic pain. I have a spinal issue. And I was upfront and honest that I am someone who will once in a while going to need to have a day off because I will have chronic pain flare-ups. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't covering or hiding any of this. Interestingly enough, the person who was interviewing me also lives with chronic pain, and specifically spinal chronic pain. They happened to also be my immediate supervisor once I was hired, and they had appreciated that I was upfront about it because it was something that both of us were able to bond over. Right. And I was like, this is going to be great. I have someone who literally feels.
Someone understands me.
and understands where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
It backfired. The reason being is because this individual has also been able to walk away from their pain and just expects everyone else to be able to also walk away from it, and belittled me, bullied me, and made me feel less than a full human being as a result.
That sucks. Especially somebody you thought was an ally and suddenly became precisely the opposite.
And use their own perspective and life to throw it into my face.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I had that, I'll get over it. Look what I'm doing. Why can't you do that?
Exactly.
Let me tell a small... Okay.
I had a discussion with both of our immediate bosses one time, being like, you need to give 100% when you are at work, and you are not currently giving 100% when you're at work. And this needs to stop, and this needs to change now, or you are going to be in risk of losing your job. Well, and I immediately went to HR being like, no. I'm being my own advocate. Good, yeah. I cannot stress this enough, I cannot give 100% when I am at work because I live with chronic pain. There are times that I'm going to need to put my pain before my job. And that's just one of those unfortunate things that I have to live with.
And nobody wants to hear it.
And no one wants to hear it. I had been asking for different accommodations for being able to work from home instead of having to travel into work and being in that environment. And all of those were, any of the accommodations I had asked for specifically for that were shut down. Now, that's not to say that they didn't give me other things. Like, they made sure I had an amazing chair that helped out. Like, I had to go into this chair warehouse and have one of the floor individuals work with me, being like, oh, your spine is one of those. Okay, so you're like one of those 2% people. This is the chair that you need. Because we had gone through like 5 other chairs, and he's like, oh, I know what you need, and found the right chair for me as a result, which... if I hadn't physically gone into the warehouse and had an individual work with me to find the right chair that I need for work, I doubt highly I would have found it.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you did it, at least at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I had documents of all this, like going through trying to find the right chair for my specific spine issues. Mm-hmm. And that even of itself, like, I had to take a day off work. I had to bus there because at the time I didn't have a car, and like busing also was kind of uncomfortable because of that like jerking motion of like starting, stopping.
Well, plus you're facing sideways typically on most buses, city buses, right? So you're actually going like, you know, your spine's making weird little motions that you don't typically make.
Yeah. And Crosai says, plus they're assuming you wake up at 100%, yet maybe it's 50% on a good day. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Okay, so they walk you. So, they walk you through the chair warehouse.
Chair warehouse. Finally, find one that works well for me, and they have that set up. I also get a sit stand station. What's the individual that comes in? And they made sure like my desk setup was correct for what I needed, and that like the 90
like an ergonomics expert
yeah,
or something?
yeah, exactly. Okay. So they did as much as they could.
Sure.
However, when I had asked for different accommodations in terms of the workload that I was doing, because the job that I was doing, it was time sensitive, and I was only working 3 days a week, and I was taking on things that needed to be answered within a workday, where I was working 4 hours, 3 days a week, and I would have all of these things that I would have to then catch up on every single day, because it would be a day and a half of not being there, and I was always doing catch up. And I ended up starting to go to work earlier and spending an hour offline just trying to catch up on what I had missed.
Unacceptable, but yeah, I got you.
And I'm like, okay, I love this job. And the company itself, they were a good company, but it ended up that we had to part ways.
Right.
And that's when I retired, because I realized there's like, if this company, which was a good company to work for and was mostly understanding, except for a couple people here and there, mostly understanding of what it was like to live with chronic pain and trying to help me continue to be there. If that company couldn't do it for me, I doubted highly there was going to be another one. And that's when I finally applied for CPP disability.
Right. Which is totally fair. I mean, especially if you're at that point, what else do you do, right?
Yeah.
You know,
because I
how
still
long
needed
ago was that?
6 years ago now.
Right. And what have you done since? Everything you possibly can to manage your pain. But simple fact is, this is probably as good as it's going to get for, you know, you'll continue to do what you can do to like make your quality of life better. But, you're where you're at.
Yeah. I doubt highly I am ever going to be able to hold a job down again. And that is incredibly depressing.
Yeah. But on the flip side, look at what you get to do in forums like this, where you can at least share part of yourself with the world where you would otherwise not get to if you were, you know, either working or just stuck not working, and just sort of like, you know, you have an outlet, I suppose is what I'm trying to say, for what that's worth.
Yeah. And another one that I've done as well is I've been in counseling as an adult living with chronic pain. Now, I'm very lucky in that regard, and that's something that I know, is that I am lucky that I have had the privilege to be able to talk with a counselor for as many years as I have, and I have a better capacity as a result of all of that hard work. And don't get me wrong, it is a lot of hard work living with chronic pain and being able to talk about it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and that's it too. Like, that's something that we're not really going to get a chance to talk about today, but there is an incredible mental game when it comes to living with chronic pain, where every bloody step, movement,
breath
requires planning, assessment, and then action.
Yeah. Kissy Kitten says ergonomics are important, but not always perfect. Yes, very much so. And Possessed Cat, I was told that the wait list for the rheumatologist is over a year long, and I just had a breakdown because the constant pain and fatigue is so hard. And that's something, absolutely, the fatigue of living with chronic pain and having to work through that. One of the things I call is a pain brain fog. And sometimes I've said that, like, I lose my capacity of language when I'm having a really bad bout of pain brain fog. And And that again, being like, having people being like, well, why can't you talk about it? Like, what is wrong with you if you can't even like understand this sentence that I'm saying to you?
You begin to lose your faculties. Your mind is so exhausted from managing like this unending onslaught of your body basically just saying, no, we're not doing anything that you want us to do. We're doing the exact opposite. And you like chronic pain can be so bad it causes you genuine fear.
Very much so.
When it begins to flare up, because you're like, oh my god, I know what this is, and I you kind of know what to do, but you kind of know it's coming, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
However long, whatever that is going to last. So it is so much a mental game as it is a physical game as far as dealing with the chronic pain. It really is. Because it is exhausting. You are constantly fatigued.
Yeah, and having to be your own advocate, especially for people who are just like, well, why don't you just do this and get better? And be like, oh, well, I'm pretty sure it's not that bad.
Right, or how bad could it possibly be? My back hurts all the time. I get up and I'm aching.
Yeah, and having to be your own advocate is also exhausting.
Very much so. Because you have to fight against it.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, so this is, I guess, as good a time as any. I was going to save it because it could possibly be a much longer conversation, but with regard to the bullying thing that exists in not just like in public life, but in the medical fields, dealing with people who have addictions, because we're assuming people have addictions when they're coming to get pain treated.
Yep.
Like the first time I began this road down treating pain for myself, I had the very typical unfortunate experience of opioid addiction, where it began with a trip to the ER, the doc, one drug, two drugs, and so on and so forth, until suddenly it's all encompassing, it's taken over my life, etc. Years later, I'm having to combat this at a completely, like, consider this, the fact that I became so terribly addicted to the medications, and now also deal with almost the exact same pain I did last time, except in a different spot in my back. It's hard to navigate, and my guard is all the way automatically up. I'm automatically like, because I know that look when you go to a doctor or you go to an ER and you're like, my back hurts. It's that look that a lot of people know of, like, okay, where are we going with this? What are you asking me for? You know? And it is a form. It's hard for medical professionals to know precisely, because there is such a huge epidemic of using opioid medication.
And it is an epidemic. That is the absolute correct word for it. It is an absolute epidemic.
But people are no less pain. Like, pain's a weird thing. I do that disclaimer of not being a medical professional, but ask any doctor. It's not a discipline a lot of doctors sort of pursue, because, like you said in the very beginning, it's all subjective. There's not a lot of great treatments out there for pain. I mean, it's getting better, I suppose, compared to, like 50 years ago. But there's still like all these broad-based medications that they have to keep trying, because what else can you do,
Yeah. And some of the medications cross with each other. So for nerve medication, it's also under the same as a depression medication. And you can take a medication that's for depression for your nerves, and vice versa. Now, I've had unfortunate, mostly adverse reactions to both depression medication along with nerve medication. One of which I still have. I haven't taken this medication in years now, and I'm still suffering from side effects from it.
Wow. Okay.
And
it's terrible.
Yeah. No, and like I've talked with my counselor about it, because I've been trying to work my way through it to see if there's anything I can do on my end of the heavy lifting. And that's what I've been calling it, the heavy lifting of working through an issue.
Yes.
And yeah, even
Well,
all
the
of
same thing-
that.
The same thing you just said about being your own advocate, that's what that requires.
Mm-hmm.
Like, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree. Like, you know, I know most of the folks in chat who've talked about dealing with chronic pain for different issues, you know, clearly like it's been a very long time. But you know, we're all our own best advocates because no one is ever going to do the work on your behalf the way you're going to do it. And
Mhm.
it's sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Yeah, and Possessed Cat says, I woke up today with my entire body swollen and stiff. And that's it. Like, flare-ups can happen at any time. And they can come out of the blue, or they can be ones where, like, you know you're going to have a bad day afterwards. And you have to choose on whether or not you're going to do this thing or not.
Yes.
That becomes complicated as well. And, like, again, being your own advocate as well. Being like, is this worth it? Is this thing that I'm thinking of going to be worth it? Or is it going to be too difficult that knowing tomorrow, every single breath that I'm going to take is going to make it worse? And you have to keep breathing. I'm sorry, this is just one of those things.
Wait, what?
I know, right?
What are you on about?
Did you know that you have to breathe constantly? It's
Alright, fine.
necessary.
I mean, we're not medical professionals, but I guess that is good advice. You should
Kind
breathe.
of good advice, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, and it can cause like panic attacks and anxiety attacks, which makes your muscles tense up more, which makes the pain worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
100%. Yeah, well, that's where that mental game, like you're like you feel it, and all of a sudden you start panicking. You're like, oh my god, no, you know, and you palpitations, sweaty, and it just makes it worse, and you become tighter, and it's a mess.
And then
But
you have people being like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Right.
Knowing,
Exactly.
especially if they are individuals who already know that you live with chronic pain, being like, what the hell's wrong with you today? Be
Exactly.
like, having to yet again be your own best advocate. Talk about, oh, well, I'm having a pain flare up. Oh, you're having another one? Didn't you just have one last week? Like, why don't you have this under control already? And
I don't
making
know.
it
It felt like a really fun hobby.
your fault
Yes.
that you were in pain again, and that you were in the wrong that you were in
Yes.
pain again, because it's inconveniencing them.
And you're making poor decisions based on whatever it is that they sort of think you should be doing, going back to, again, what we talked about before.
Yeah, like clearly you're the one who's making this worse, so stop doing this stupid thing that is causing all this pain. Also, the word stupid, terrible in terms of ableism.
Yeah.
Just as a side note.
Well, and so Kissy Kitten in chat says sometimes we're our own bully when it comes to chronic pain too, although that very much stems from societal expectations of people.
Yeah.
Let's touch on that, because that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the whole, like, you know, stiff upper lip crap.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, like, so often will I get yelled at either by my darling wife and now my new really irritating online friends who for some reason are all obnoxious and care about, you know, people and stuff.
Those assholes. How dare
just
they?
Awful group of people. It's disgusting.
By the way, this is an 18 plus both podcast and stream. We will swear once in a while.
Naughty language.
Mm-hmm.
But excuse me. Ridiculous. Damn it, I forgot my point. What was I saying? Help me
Something
out.
brilliant.
Oh, the oh, okay. Stop it right now. Ridiculous. The self-bullying.
Mm-hmm.
I do it too often because I'm like, just get better. Just do the thing, because I'm tired of being where I'm at. It's exhausting, like we've talked about. Sick of thinking about it. I'm sick of talking about it. But on the same token, it's like we have to have healthy conversations, because the idea of being sick about it implies that it's a negative thing that exists in my life, and it shouldn't. And I'm not explaining myself properly here. It's a part of who I am, and instead of cursing it and just, you know, being upset by it, finding healthier ways to just understand this is part of where I'm at in life and where I will likely have to be for a while, and just be okay existing in that space. I guess is
Learning,
my final point.
yeah, learning to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Learning to give yourself that space that you need is
And
really
time.
difficult. And time. Very much so. My spouse has a tendency to say that I'm stubborn LND mode whenever I'm just like, I'm just hyper focused. I'm just going to do this one more thing and then I'm going to be done. And they'll be like, you're being stubborn again. I'm like, I know, but I just want to. And no, you're being stubborn again. Please
Exactly.
don't hurt yourself. I know you want to get this done. It doesn't need to be done this very instant. This can wait and it's going to be okay. And just having someone remind me that it's going to be okay if I don't get the dishes done today, if I don't get the laundry done today, if I don't do this, that, or the other thing today, or even if I don't even get it done in this hour. I sometimes need to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Just to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's again, like, I've bullied myself to the point where I can't work. I pushed myself constantly and I listened to all the other individuals being like, well, just do it or just get better or just get it through this.
Right.
And I listened to
Exactly.
them to the point that I can't work anymore.
And how helpful was exactly there? I was gonna say, how helpful was that?
I literally broke myself for work.
Right.
And I can't change that. That is my existence now.
But what you can do from here on out is what you've been doing.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here, which is to have a healthier attitude towards it. It's never going away.
No.
We know that, right? Like that's just this is, and as a matter of fact, not only is it not going away, it will likely get worse over time, to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah, the worse better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. It can change from day to day. It can also change from hour to hour.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, you feel one way the whole entire day, and suddenly your body is just, I'm going
Like,
to do the opposite right now.
Checks out.
And that's it. Okay, so with going back to again the topic of ableism and bullying, so I think we fairly adequately covered where it comes from with the medical field, where it comes from with ourselves. We did start to touch on it when it comes with family and friends, but we didn't quite go there.
Yeah.
I guess let's start there because that's a big one because
It's a
everybody
huge
has
one.
family and friends.
Yeah, and
That-
expectations from family and friends.
Yes.
So years ago, I was part of a program at the local city hospital. It was a 2-week program, and it was a program for adults who live with chronic pain. And one of the things that the program did was allow outside individuals to come in for a talk and being like, okay, so one of your loved ones lives with chronic pain. Here are some things that we can talk about that you can help them and
Right.
making their day a little bit better. And this is some of the things that they live with, and like just allowing that space. So they had 2 different talks. One of the ones I brought my in-laws, so my parent-in-laws and my sibling-in-laws in for, and the other one I brought in my partner and the other individuals that I was dating at the time. So I'm a polyamorous person, so I am married and openly date other individuals as well. So that one was really important for me, being able to bring in both my spouse and my partners to this.
Right.
And how they, as one of my partners or as my spouse, can help me when I'm living with chronic pain and when I'm having a flare-up or when I'm not being kind to myself because I am bullying myself because I have drank the Kool-Aid of other ableists and bullies
Mm-hmm.
and now believing it myself.
Yes.
And
yes,
it
very much so.
really helped, where I had individuals being like, oh, well, you don't love me because you're not coming to this thing, to being like, oh, I understand that you are having a bad pain day. Next time we will see you, then know that we love you unconditionally. And it was such a big change. And it was an important one because it wasn't one I could do just by myself. And I had literal medical professionals help me with that one. And help them be my advocate for me. And it was life-changing in the best way possible. But again, I'm really lucky. I am in a very privileged space where I was able to be part of that program, and I was able to bring these individuals in, and they were open-minded enough to be there with me and to actually listen.
Right.
Quartz Blue says, I took today off due to my pain. Also, hello. And yes, sometimes you do. You need to take the day off and be your own advocate and take the day off because of your pain. I'm proud of you for doing that. That is never easy to do. And I used to get into cold sweats and anxiety spirals when I was still working because I knew I was going to get the cold shoulder once I went back to work because heaven forbid, I had to take a day off.
Oh, there's old lazy over there coming in on her after a 3-day weekend or whatever, her random day off.
Absolutely. And and it was a huge shift in how I was treated if I ever needed to take a day off of work because my pain was so much that breathing was difficult, that walking was difficult.
And the second you use the word back pain, people just, it's a visual, it's an eye roll. It's almost an instant eye roll anytime you mention back pain.
Yep.
Because it's if you say something like a disease, like a cancer or something, people, it's a different story. But there is few to any compassion. There's little to any compassion when it comes to chronic pain, and not comparing those two things at all, but simply because they're different doesn't mean the reactions to these things need to be so vastly different. Like, we lived in a space for years where nobody ever took self-care. I mean, that wasn't even a term until God knows how recently. I mean, I don't ever recall seeing hearing that growing up.
No,
I'm sure you didn't either.
No.
And so now we're trying to explore and live in this sort of healthier space because that old way that we've talked about doesn't kind of do anything for anybody. It doesn't help solution any problems people are having medically with these pain issues, and it just hurts relationships, and it just drives people further into depression on top of already being in chronic pain.
And sorry, I'm also just having a small spike as we speak, so you're gonna have to say that one again, because
that's okay. We're all over the road here.
You know that having issues trying to parse language. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Here's a real life example of exactly what chronic pain is like. Once in a while, I will hear words, and I cannot process what those words are.
That's okay. I also have a tendency to go all over the place too, so that that might be an issue as well.
What? ADHD? What are you talking about?
I know.
Oh wow! Look at this thing over here.
Right, exactly. Well, listen, this was our first podcast. You and I have talked offline a lot about this stuff, and I think as we continue this, because the plan is to do this once every 2 weeks. I think we discussed Sundays would actually be our normal day.
I think
for the live show, and then the podcast will be released either that evening or the following morning, that Monday, available online.
Probably Monday. I think Twitch has a 24-hour hold on content, so I think it would be the Monday.
Perfectly fine. So we'll get that up, but we want to continue to have these conversations because everybody, just the folks that we've talked to today in chat, everybody seems to have a story. Well, if enough of us have a story, like this is kind of the things that we can do. Like we can have healthier conversations about the boundaries that we need.
Yeah.
Have better conversations about how we treat ourselves. You know, like the people that we should be, and you know, treating our own selves with dignity, because that's something I have never done in my entire life, and it's always been a foreign concept. So yeah, I mean, these are great conversations, and I look forward to doing more of them.
Absolutely. I do want to touch on one more thing, because Quartz Blue brought up something that is actually very valid, and it'll also tie into something that I had experienced during that 2-week session that I had at the hospital. So Quartz Blue says, when my dad and stepmom visited a month ago, they helped me get some needed laundry done at the laundromat, and I was in pain. I had to keep pushing to sit and recover a moment, and then I would get up and keep working. Yet somehow they just couldn't get it. Oh, how can it be that bad? You're young.
Yes, clearly you're not able to feel pain when you're younger.
And that's falling under the bullies and ableists. I had my injury in my 20s.
Yeah, same.
And I've had so many individuals discount my pain because of my age and belittle
you're
it.
Young, you're fine. You get
exactly.
over it.
Oh, you'll bounce back. You're young. Oh, you'll be fine. You're young.
Will I? Will I? Really? When?
And Kissy Kitten is correct. Pain does not care how old you are.
No, it doesn't.
It really doesn't.
Doesn't care. Mm-mm.
No. And that's that falls again under the dealing with bullies and ableists. That idea that your age allows you to do whatever you want and you can bounce from it is not accurate.
No, it isn't. It's not. And it's destructive. It's
Very
destructive
much
mentally.
so.
And again, for people like yourself who you say, you know, you get these stubborn bouts of like wanting to do something, you know, when you shouldn't be doing it. I promise you.
Just take some Tylenol and you'll be fine. Don't worry about it, without understanding the cost of your internal organs if you constantly take Tylenol and Advil and going on to other stronger and more intense medications, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think we have a good jumping off place. I'm not saying we're wrapping up if you don't want to, but I think this is a good discussion to have, because this is all part of, for me, the larger push. I think we've all seen with the paying attention to mental health, right? And self, and that, like, you know, just taking care of yourself. So I think that this is just an important part of that conversation. You know, if you need therapy because you need help or whatever it is, do that. Well, it's the same thing with physical pain. You know, if you need to address it and you do live with it, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to address it, and, you know, find other people who understand what you're going through.
I've had individuals that I tried being open and honest about it and have their eyes glaze over as I'm talking with them.
I mean, yeah, that does happen, and it's really a great moment when you're trying desperately to get this person to understand, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you know, this article I was reading." Okay.
Yeah.
Guess that's over.
Or just like
demoralizing.
Very, especially if it's someone that you care about, especially if it's someone you look up to, and they can't even give you the time of day.
Yeah, and no one's saying everybody has to expend, as you know, so much like energy into, but at least comment somebody. You know, if you don't want to sit there and talk about whatever, comment somebody with just a modicum of compassion and the idea that you may not understand what the hell they're talking about as far as like what they're going through, and just try to take people at their word.
Yeah, because
it's hard.
I know that like Ukrainian is a language, but that doesn't mean I understand it.
No.
Right? If we want to talk about things that are like randomly, like, yeah, of course, you should be able to understand that chronic pain is a thing. You don't have to necessarily understand everything of it, but like know that it exists and acknowledge it.
And
Can
don't
be a big
dismiss it.
thing. Exactly.
Don't just simply because it doesn't affect you or your experience was different. So talking about experiences that are different, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, had a procedure done recently. They have been in a fair amount of pain. They have had to rely on pain medication.
Mm-hmm.
I, having a spinal surgery, have relied very little on any pain medication.
And understandably so with your history.
But here's the thing though, it's not about better or worse. This person had this procedure done. I've had this procedure done before, granted a different area of the body, like a slightly different. I knew what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
The pain is there, it's terrible, it's awful, but I know what I'm dealing with. People who are new to that type of pain, it's different. It is very different.
Yes.
And to just simply dismiss it as, oh, well, you know, you had this whole thing happen to you and here I am whining about this. Like, no, don't do that. And don't do that to yourself. Like, it doesn't, I had somebody talk to me similarly when I was complaining about a life issue or whatever was going on. And I'm like, why am I complaining about this? I have everything that I could ever want. Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, fine. But why would you diminish that? It doesn't make you feel any better about what you're going through. Like, yeah, you appreciate it, what you have more, but still, pain is pain, period.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And everyone's journey is different. And yes, absolutely. I've had people on two different sides of that. Some who have spoken with me specifically because they knew I lived with chronic pain and just wanted to be like, hey, I'm starting to live with pain too, and I want to be able to talk with someone about it who would understand.
Mm-hmm.
And other people being like, oh my goodness, like your pain is so much worse. Here I am talking about mine, and like,
and it comes from a place of like, I want you to feel like I'm paying attention and making sure that I'm prioritizing you.
Yeah,
it's coming from a place of like, I guess, kindness, but it's not a good thing to do.
It's an awkward place to be in.
Yes.
Is what it is. It's a well, mine is greater than yours type of mentality, or vice versa, or mine is lesser than yours. So it doesn't it isn't allowed to have a space in this conversation, which I don't think is correct. And yeah, Kizzy Kitten is correct both in saying that pain is a whole language. Very, very true. And pain is not a competition.
No.
And anyone who treats it as such is not... That's complicated. Yeah, that's
it's
a very...
Unhealthy.
Yes. Unhealthy is probably the easiest way to talk about this, but there is so much self-belittling, other belittling, making things lesser than what they actually are. And it makes an unhealthy conversation about something that is tricky and also very individual, as we were mentioning earlier. Like, pain is incredibly unique to each and every single person.
It is. And we just need to have a healthier attitude towards dealing with it and you know, addressing it, either if it's ours or somebody else's. Mm-hmm. You know, nobody needs you. Like, I don't need you to know my whole life story, but if I'm telling you something is wrong with me, take me at my word and understand that, like, your advice isn't solicited. You know, just let me exist, and I'll just understand that, you know, what I'm going through isn't invalidated by your experience or your thoughts about something.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Retro says there's a sort of cruelty people exhibit when they say things like, just take a Tylenol, or more general, simple suggestions, small scale solutions like A, as if I haven't thought of that, and B, as if the little metaphorical band-aid they have suggested is an appropriate response. to the metaphorical sucking chest wound that is the real problem. Where they don't personally live with chronic pain, they've had a lot of people say similar things for their lack of focus due to ADHD. And that one I feel viscerally because I am someone who also lives with ADHD. And I've had people, we'll just get a daily planner and you'll be able to figure it out. Like, you'll be able to get to your appointments on time. Like, just do this small thing and your ADHD problems will disappear. People also deal with chronic pain in a very similar, dismissive manner.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a trap a lot of folks fall into. I'm sure I've done it numerous times in my life in different areas, but it's just something that we need to be more aware of, I guess. Not just in this space, but in every space, because that way of thinking of not doing those things doesn't just apply here, but it's just kind of like an idea for life of, well, I mean, it's your channel. Do you want to say the line? Don't be a
dick.
There you go.
Yes.
Pretty simply.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Will Wheaton, or as I like to say, Will Wheaton.
Oh,
Will Wheaton. Yeah, it's even all over my about page on Twitch. First things first, in very big, bold letters, don't be a dick.
There you go.
Nice and simple.
Simple works.
Yep, I like simple. And that falls into the trap sometimes as well, as like, oh, well, this person's just simply trying to help you. Or this person's just got a simple solution for your very complicated thing. Oh, and yeah. That gets incredibly complicated too.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This has been great. I've both been a little apprehensive because I figured I was going to be like bawling my eyes out the entire time and like sniffling. And also excited to be doing this podcast because I think this is important. I think this conversation is something that is overlooked, is under talked about, and is glossed over.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think I think as we explore the different areas of it, of this topic, like I know we've talked about being a caregiver to somebody with chronic pain. I've been in a caregiving situation, you know, with like anybody over time, you know, somebody gets sick in your house or has a little procedure or something that would take them down for like a day or two, but not like where it's your lifestyle has to change.
Yeah.
Or what it is you do for this person does for you. It's a whole thing. So that's definitely something we're going to talk about. I know I want to probably touch a little bit more on the addiction thing eventually. But yeah, what other topics have you thought of, if any, for future shows?
The caregiving one is definitely one that I'm looking forward to doing, as well as someone who my spouse has been my caregiver for years now.
Same.
And I was talking with them yesterday, and one of the things I had said, now this is going to make me cry. One of the things I had said yesterday was that I feel like I'm a terrible wife because of my chronic pain, that I am not present enough, that I am not able to give enough because my pain takes up so much of my energy, and that I am not good enough for them.
Yeah. I've had similar conversations, but you're an amazing human being, and I'm just gonna say it becomes part of your identity, and it's hard not to own it. It's just impossible.
Unhealthy to not own it, I think, is what it is. It's incredibly unhealthy to not own up to it and not to embrace it, because it is part of, both for you and I, this is part of who we are now. As much as we don't like it, as much as we would love to be like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take off this coat and like get rid of it and like put it in a burn
activities
pile.
I can sign up for? Like, is there another elective? Because this one sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, would not recommend, minus
0
a billion out of 10.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a terrible
sorry.
thing.
It
You're
is.
fine. You're fine. But conversations like this, like, are such a stark contrast from like this morning when I walked around the house to just try to walk around because I have to get up as often as I can after my surgery.
Yes.
The moments where, you know, I look in a mirror and I don't recognize the person that I am because of what I'm feeling physically.
Yeah.
Like I look at myself, and I looked at myself this morning. I'm like, what the hell happened? And I'm in a good place with my recovery. I'm a week after this recent surgery, and I'm far surpassing what I should be. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the situation I'm in is now going to change the direction of how my body is going to be for the rest of my life. Like, this wasn't a surgery to make things better. It was to stop things from getting worse.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between preventative medicine and reparative medicine. And
Right.
sometimes,
And this is,
it's the preventative form, it getting worse as it's in its decline.
exactly. So this will continue to be what it is, and I will improve over time. But the fact of the matter is, I'm still where I'm at. So that look in the mirror of like, God, what is happening, is contrasted by moments like this where we get to share these thoughts and feelings, and people in chat can, and of course anybody listening on the podcast can understand and be a part of the discussion, because hey, look, it's life, and we all deal with any number of different things in pain. Well, this is our story. This is part of our story that we want to share.
Yeah, and it's anecdotal, obviously.
Of course.
Because we are not medical professionals either.
Nope, we're just here, we're friends dealing with a very similar issue, and we know there's a lot of other folks out there who want to be able to listen to other people's stories and maybe get the chance to talk about some of theirs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm really glad that someone suggested that we do this.
Oh my god. So am I. It was so like a
It was random
thought, and we did the audio version of looking at each other like, oh my god, what a great idea.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
One of the things, I was talking with my spouse yesterday on our way back after having my nerve blocking injections and the new injections around my hip. And one of the things, whenever I'm in a lot of pain, two things are very much more prevalent. A, I become snippy. And B, I become overly apologetic. So like I have a short fuse when I'm in a lot of pain, because I don't have the capacity to take on anything else. So even if like I drop something, I will swear like a sailor.
Right.
That has just lost their ship when I've just like dropped my cell phone on the ground. And then on the flip side, I'll also be incredibly apologetic to my spouse, being like, I am so sorry. I am in this much pain. And I'll apologize for my pain to my spouse.
Of course, as you should. I mean, it's obviously your fault.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a hard trap to fall into. And I do it all the damn time.
Yeah.
I'll look at my wife, like, if I'm out there walking around and she'll be doing something in the kitchen, I'm like, I'm so sorry. You have to deal with this. I don't know what to do. Like, I just, there's this moment of defeat and this look from her of like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, we often so often put our own thoughts in other people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate I have a spouse who is just as committed to me and everything we are as a husband and wife, but still I can't help but feel that guilt of like, oh, you have to deal with me over and over and over again.
Yeah. I've straight up asked my spouse if they still want to stay.
Oh, we've had that conversation. That was years ago, but yes, we've absolutely had that conversation.
Being like, look, this is not going to go away. are you still in this for the long haul? And I will not
Yeah.
blame you if you want to back out.
And this isn't what you signed up for. Yeah, that's a hard. Oh god, damn it. That's like a soul crushing thing to even just have said. Like I want to cry
Yep.
even having like just thrown it out there in the universe. Jesus Christ, that sucks.
It sucked. And my spouse is like, you were the person that I love, with or without the pain. And you were the
Yeah.
person I want to grow old with or without the pain. I am here for all of it.
So we're stuck together. So get
Yeah.
wrecked, nerd. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And Kissy Kitten says, I apologize to T so often because of not being able to do things. His response is always, why would you apologize? It's not like you chose this. I apologize to my spouse because they are the ones who has a full-time job, who also has to do all of the like house maintenance, lawn maintenance. We have a garden. It's 15 feet by 40 feet. All the garden and maintenance, along with like making sure the cars get to and from the garage, for example, where I go to pick them up, and all of these things.
Yeah.
And the number of times I have apologized that I'm sorry that you have to do this. I'm sorry that you have to do all of this because I physically cannot do it. And they're like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Right, because that's how you would react in that moment. Like, turn the tables.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everything you would react to say, like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, this is what we do. When you get married, like, you're in it. But the opposite side is like, oh, I'm a garbage person. I've ruined this person's life and I'm taking them down with me. So yeah, you should probably go while you still can. Unfortunately, if you're fortunate enough to have somebody who does care about you, it's not how that works. And you're just, you're gonna have to deal with being cared about and loved.
Yeah. As a side note, someone, Monscott has asked, what is the podcast called? Now, we've been debating on this. One of the ones that we've come up with is Pain Pals. It's a title it's a work in progress. For specifically the title for the Twitch is Adults Living with Chronic Pain Podcast with LND and Sid Coletti, and topic being dealing with bullies and ableists.
Yep, and that will be the title on the actual podcast itself. So just for the episode title rather.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I think this has been not only necessary but really, really good and therapeutic.
No, it was great.
Cathartic even.
Well, I love a good catharsis, especially if I can share it with a bunch of people in chat. It's nice. But yeah, I think we did it. I know there were some moments in the beginning where it was a little rocky, but hey, that's how we don't plan things, guys. This is just
Plannings is for people who have the capacity to plan ahead of time.
Exactly.
People who live with chronic pain don't always necessarily have the spoons to be able to plan ahead of time either.
Oh, hey, you just threw that out there. Do you want to take a minute and explain spoon theory? Is that something that you'd rather talk about when we have like an opening to a longer conversation?
Oh, that's a really good question.
It's new to me. Yeah.
That's a good question. Because, yeah, I know, like, last night I was doing, like, furious, like, oh my god, I need to do all of this update. And being like, okay, I need to make sure that I contact my moderators, being like, okay, this is going to be happening tomorrow. This is going to be the topic that we're talking about. We're changing the format specifically from my normal Twitch stream. And we're not doing some of the things that we usually would do as a result. And just making sure that everyone was on the same page. And, like, that took a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And, Quartz Blue says, I know the spoons theory is a very good topic. That could be one that we could talk about as well going forward. Okay. That's one that I talk about fairly often in stream. And I even have a command for it to bring it over to Christine's article, but you don't look sick.
And you sent that to me, and I've read the article title before. I just every time I see it, just love it. You don't look sick.
Yeah.
Just hear
And
the
that's one of the things
voice.
about living with an invisible disability. And that's the same for you and myself having a spinal injury. It's invisible most of the time, unless of course you're walking around with, like myself, once in a while I need to walk around with a cane.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then it's very, very apparent. Spines are rude.
Yes.
That is saying the least. Spines are incredibly rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Humans are awkwardly built.
We are. We're not built to last as long as we do anymore, but you know, what can you do?
No, and there's also this, like, we're constantly sitting, which is incredibly unhealthy.
It is. It absolutely is, and that I attribute some of the deterioration to exactly that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of other factors. Mm-hmm.
And there's also this, like, idea, we'll just walk it off. I've had conversation and like heated conversations with my spouse before, being like, let's just go out for a walk. And when we do, especially if we do walks outside, sometimes the sidewalk won't be completely steady, and I can't necessarily lift my foot enough, and I'll catch myself on a crack or on like a lifted area of the sidewalk, nearly trip, catch myself, have my back spasm, and then be stuck outside without my cane, far from my home, and having to literally drag my feet as I walk home, the entire time being angry at myself, being angry at my spouse for suggesting that we should go out for a walk, being angry that I am in pain, being angry that this is my existence and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the anger is very real. Very much so.
And then being angry at myself for being angry at myself, and being angry at myself for being angry at my spouse, and then being angry at myself for being angry in my situation. And it just becomes this awful, toxic gyre of
which,
like,
in your mind is righteous.
Right? And like just all of these, like, oh, well, you should just be able to walk this off. Oh, you should just be able to do this because you're young. Oh, you should be, or you should have. And all of this information that I've been fed for years and years from people who are looking from an ableist perspective, who are just bullying me because they don't understand what chronic pain is like. And I've internalized it and then using that against myself.
To create a dialogue that is, I mean, for me, it's a constant task to be aware of those things, and I'm not great at it. I often will have trouble. I mean, you have talked to me about it, other friends, my wife. It just becomes so part of that internal monologue of you're just terrible, you're terrible, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Or you have done something so wrong and you deserve this.
You
pain.
deserve that. It's right.
You have been such
garbage.
a horrific person. You deserve this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to complain. You're not allowed to complain. You get to live with this and you get to shut the fuck up because you are not worthy. And that's, again, outside other people's voices coming in.
Yep. You said it perfectly. You really did. 100%.
Swearing included, because sometimes you need an F-bomb.
Sometimes you do. And with chronic pain, it's probably more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much so.
So
I think we did it. I think we did it. Yeah, I've finally found something for me for walking. I've got I walk inside now, and I've got a good pattern that I can do. And I find that if my spine's been really, really, really upset, I have to start off with being like, okay, step, 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 and I can slowly feel myself being able to work on it and be able to like bring myself that space that I need.
Yes.
To move forward. And I think that's it. I think that's the moving forward is a good place to stop for here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we got out there what we wanted to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
We covered all our little topics, and then we will be again doing this. Gosh, what would the next date be?
We were talking about Sundays, right?
Sunday. Well,
Sunday,
yeah,
Sunday,
the 3rd
Sunday.
would be the next episode.
July 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a post after me being a human juice box or donating blood.
Fun. They use a sippy straw, like crazy straw, or
yes.
It's an old boring, needle.
Oh yeah, no. It's interesting actually for donating blood. The width of the needle, so like how wide it is going in, has actually gone down ever so slightly since I started donating when I was just able to versus now, and I found that an interesting thing. But yeah, I think the 3rd may be a good spot for us.
Okay.
And we can put a tentative on that, and I think we may need to do a little bit more offline talking about which subjects specifically we'll cover, because there's a few that we've talked on today.
Yes.
That are all amazing topics that we can talk about.
Individually, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And everyone who's been here in the chat, thank you. Thank you for being here. I know a lot of you said some messages where I read them. I wasn't necessarily able to read them out loud. I read them though. And I hear you, and thank you. Your time is so incredibly precious, and I appreciate that you've taken your time to be here today.
And thank you.
That could be another good one. Time and chronic pain.
Okay. In the sense of like you having to adjust your world time based around that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, being
it's
like
day-to-day life. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Day-to-day living.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it too.
Okay. Friend, thank you for hosting a really awesome thing. And everybody, thank you for being here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. I'm going to do my usual thing at the end of this stream and sharing all of this love out to someone else. I know exactly who I'm going to be sharing this over to.
Perfect. Let's say goodbye to the podcast audience. Bye, everybody, and see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. Sid, thank you for being here. Thank you for being my friend and being my mod and being someone who is my confidant.
Gross. Fine. Okay. I accept all of it. Thank you, friend.
Ha ha. I appreciate and love you. Deal with it, nerd.
Nerd. All right. See ya. Bye, friend.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Let's get this over to end of stream. There is my little raid message. Here are my socials. So as we were saying earlier, we're going to be uploading this I'm going to be uploading this onto YouTube. It'll be at least 24 hours before I do so, just because of stuff and things. And once I have more information with Sid and getting it up onto a podcast, I'll be sure to include that information as well. Each and every one of you, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories with me. Like that takes courage. And even if I didn't read out loud what your story was, I still definitely read it, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. It's amazing. And yeah, I am so grateful. I'm so incredibly grateful for all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing us to have this space to have a difficult conversation. In the meantime, I'm going to be raiding out to one of our Everbright Global Gaming team members. Their main name is Archmage Sar. They're an amazing streamer. I adore them to pieces. So let's head on over and get that raid up and running. And just remember, be good to yourselves. Be good to your hearts. And all of you gals, guys, and non-binary pals, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you get a really, really good night's rest. And that you wake up to a beautiful morning. Thank you for everything. You take care now, okay?